So the World Cup has properly started now. The teams are out. France versus New Zealand. Let's get into it. Now, this opening game is kind of an event in itself. Both these teams probably will go through to the next stage, to the quarterfinals, but they'll both want to win. France, they're at home. The home crowd will be buzzing, and they don't really want to deflate that too much, but it's not a disaster, but you want to keep it rolling. For New Zealand, they're coming off the back of that tough loss against South Africa. Now, I've definitely heard there might be some reasons why they didn't perform as well, like they'd just arrived in France, or obviously the red card to Scott Barrett, but those are maybe slight reasons, not excuses. There's never excuses in any sport of any kind at any level, I would say. You've always got to look at yourself, and those players were absolutely gutted that they got absolutely smashed by South Africa. Now, what I think is the same about both these teams is they're both struggling with injury a bit. They'll have time to recover after this game, I think, in the pool, rotate how they want probably. But let's have a look at France. Cyril Bailly would be starting at loosehead, a world-class loosehead. He's injured, so that's a big problem for them. So Wardy's going to start. Marchand is their starting hooker, so he's starting at hooker. Malvaca on the bench. I'm pretty sure that's the way they'd have had it there. Antonio starts at tight head, which is the way they normally have it. On the bench, you've got Gross and Aldegheri as the replacement props. In the second row, you've got Woki and Flamont. They are the talent. They are the exciting, younger second rows. Yeah, they probably would have started the heft of Paul Willemse, but he's out completely, so that's a big blow. They would have started him. They like the combination of the athlete and the power guy, so now they're going to have to go with two athletes, although they do have a big guy on the bench in Taue Fifanua, so it's still a decent balance, but it's exciting, but not the way they'd have liked it. If one of those gets injured, then it could be problems. But anyway, very exciting with those second rows. In the back row, we've got Cross, Olivon, Aldrit. They've played together a lot before. Olivon obviously used to be the captain, and I think he's a real key man actually, because he gives the athletic ability of a flanker, but that serious height in the line out as well. You know, not many players can match that. Maybe Peter Steph du Toit of South Africa, a similar sort of player, but they are the sort of players that international coaches really, really like. I think Gelange is recovering from injury, who had started a lot for France in the previous years. In the back line, Dupont obviously starts at 9. Luku on the bench, and Luku's a good player, but he's no Dupont, and no one is really anyway. A lot of guys were saying Serran maybe should have been in the squad to start with, but Luku comes on for Dupont. I imagine Dupont will play most of this game, especially if it's tight, as will the halfback pair of Jalabert, the fly half. We know Roman Intermac is out of the World Cup, which is a shame, but Jalabert is a serious talent, very exciting. It looks like Jaminet's covering him on the bench, although Jaminet mainly there as a fullback, but it looks like he's the backup 10 as well, but he's a very talented player. In the centres, they've got Moefana at 12, who was always going to cover for Dante. Massive blow not having Dante, but then the All Blacks have got similar problems, and we'll come to that. Ficou's their starting 13, just a fantastic all-round player, fantastic defence. That's one thing France have got, a really good defence led by Ficou in that back line. Then in the back three, we've got a good balance between Villiers, the very nippy winger, Penaud, the slightly bigger winger, but an absolute fantastic finisher. The kicking machine that is Ramos, although he's a good counter-attacker as well. Then on the bench, we've mentioned most of them there. Budenhunt covers the back row, and Vincent the centres. Jaminet covers 10 and 15. So it's a very strong French team, of course, but they do have a few injuries. Will there be nerves for this opening game? I don't know. It's just a fantastic game. Like I said, a game in itself, probably not too much jeopardy for the pool, but let's just enjoy it as the game, because on Friday it's the only game anyway, as it should be. Now, the All Blacks, very similar issues, not quite their full strength team, but obviously still very good. The starting front row would have been De Groot, Taylor and Lomax, but Lomax is injured, so they're one short there, just like France. In the second row, they're probably one short again. Retallick are still recovering from injury, so Wylock and Barrett were always going to start there, but that takes Barrett out of the back row potentially. Frizzell's still injured, so what do they do? Do they play Jacobson like last match? Well, no, they've changed it around with Papali'i at 6. He can play 7 as well, but he's covering at 6. Sam Cane, the captain, at 7, and the best 8, Ardi Sevilla. So not quite the pack they would have liked. I think maybe 3 off their best pack, so let's see how that squad holds up. In the backs, Aaron Smith and Richie Mo'unga were always going to be the starting half-back pairing. Mo'unga sometimes accused of going missing in big games or when things get tough, so again a little bit of a point to prove maybe. And then in the centres, a massive shame that Geordie Barrett is injured. I think he should come back later in the World Cup, but he is their main man. He hits up very hard. He's got that height, that offload. Leonard Brown's a very good player. Harvilli's a very good player, but they're kind of skillful all-rounders, I would say. Not that searing pace and size maybe of Barrett. So good player, but let's see how they gel. Leonard Brown and the pace of Ioane, probably the fastest 13 in the tournament. Then the back three, we didn't see them far at all against South Africa, but goodness me, they've got some talent. Talea is just such a good player, high for a break, always makes the right decision. Let's see if he can burst into the World Cup. Will Jordan, probably the most talented player, I would say, in the whole New Zealand backline, and that's saying something. Can we see him unleashed? And then Beauden Barrett, the all-rounder at 15, obviously covering 10 as well. Then on the bench, Takiaho was always going to be the replacement hooker, a bit of power to come on there. Then Tuingafasi, the veteran on the bench, and then the youngster covering tight head is Fletcher Newell. Then they're testing out their strength in the second row with Tupu Vaa'i. Luke Jacobson drops to the bench, covering 8 and 6. Finlay Christie bringing on the pace, hopefully, to speed up the game a bit, although I would have loved to have seen Cam Roygaard, because I think he is the talent, has the higher ceiling of their scrum halves. David Havili's very flexible, can cover all over the place, and Lester Fainga'anuku just out-and-out firepower. I like that, coming off the bench, almost certainly onto the wing, although he could play 13 as well. So two very strong sides, very athletic, very exciting, but testing their depth. Which way is it going to go? I'd still have France as favourites. They're at home, but goodness me, it could be so exciting. Oh, and if you haven't already, please do enter our Fantasy League. That's the Rugby Analyst and Egg Chasers Joint Fantasy League. There's about 2,500 players already. Get stuck into that. Pick your team before the whistle goes on Friday. That'll be great stuff, and I'll catch you next time.